On today's episode of Locked On Wild, 3 players that need to have massive impacts in the series against Vegas.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we are your team each and every day. And we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we're going to talk about 3 key figures in the series against the Vegas Golden Knights. As these players go, the Minnesota Wild will go as well. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, credentialed media member, and I'm just going to say right off the bat, I did not include the low-hanging fruit, Kirill Kaprizov, in this one, because obviously you expect that Kirill is going to be a central figure in this series against the Vegas Golden Knights. But I came up with 3 names that I think if these players are playing well and are having really, high-end performances, the Wilds will have a better chance of going toe-to-toe against this Vegas team throughout the course of a 7-game series. Now, the first name we're going to start with is Matt Boldy. Boldy has had an interesting season, to say the least. Overall numbers, he had career highs just pretty much across the board with the exception of goals. He had 27 goals, 73 points. If you look at what Boldy's done in the postseason, in 12 career playoff games, he has 4 career points, 1 goal, and 3 assists. And as a 20-year-old in the 2021-2022 season, you could certainly give you could certainly give Boldy a little bit of the benefit of the doubt of maybe needing to experience the moment a little bit before really being able to be a solid contributor. 2022-2023, 3 assists in 6 total games. But, after now having a couple of postseasons under his belt, the time is right now for Matt Boldy to take it up a notch. We know that Kirill Kaprizov is going to be the central figure for the Minnesota Wild offensively. We know that the Vegas Golden Knights are going to try to do everything that they can to keep him quiet and keep him from turning into a game breaker that we know he can be. We also know that Kaprizov is coming off of an injury and as of yet is not quite at 100%. All of these factors come into play, which means somebody else, multiple players, somebody else is going to have to step up and be able to provide a consistent scoring threat. And Matt Boldy, he doesn't certainly have to take on the entirety of it, but it would be nice to see him step in and take the lead, take charge, say, yeah, I am happy to step in and to provide a consistent counterpunch to what Kirill Kaprizov is doing. I keep going back to when Kirill Kaprizov got injured against Logan Stanley and was out. Matt Boldy stepped to the front of the line. He had that month of March where he scored 12 goals, just went nuts. So we know it's in there. We know that capability exists. And in a series in which the Minnesota Wild are sizable underdogs, in order to contend with the likes of Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, Pavel Dorofeyev, Tomas Hertl, on and on and on, you need to have other players that can step in and can give you the threats of scoring. Now, the 2021-2022 season, Matt Boldy had a total of 13 shots on goal in the 6 games, had a shot through percentage, which just means the shot attempts that get through to the net, of 56.5%. In 2022-2023, he had 24 shots on goal in 6 games, had a shot through percentage of 58.5 on 41 total shot attempts. So I like just that progression, even just going on a base level of shots on goal, which I know is a pretty arbitrary stat, but even just seeing the shot volume in those 6 games is an encouraging sign in the right direction. And now having 2 postseasons under his belt, the hope is that he knows, at least has a better idea of what it takes to get it done in the big moments. And that he's going to be ready to be able to do that when this series gets going. The possession numbers were good, even in the series against the Dallas Stars. Boldy had a Corsi for percentage of 62% when he was on the ice, which means that 62% of the time when he was on the ice, the Minnesota Wild had the puck. And if the Wild can hold their own in the puck possession game, get down low and generate those high danger chances, that is how they are going to get goals on the board in this series against Aden Hill. But if the Minnesota Wild are going to be able to hold serve in this series, they have to have consistent offensive threats to the point that you make Vegas have to think about how they're going to defend this. If you just have one player, and we've seen both sides of the coin. We saw in the series against St. Louis when Kirill Kaprizov scored 7 goals and was just a wrecker, but nobody else did anything to assist him. And we have also seen a postseason series in which he clearly was not anywhere close to 100%. And there just wasn't a consistent enough scoring punch from the rest of the lineup. You have to have players that are going to step up and meet the top end guys that the Vegas Golden Knights have at their disposal. And this is where the contract comes into play, because Matt Boldy is getting paid to be one of those guys. You can't expect it from Freddie Gaudreau. You can't expect it from Marcus Johansson. You can't expect it from Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman, on and on down the list. Top 6 players in these types of situations have to shine. That means when Matt Boldy gets those one-time looks from the face-off circle on the power play or otherwise, you got to connect on those. You got to get a clean shot off and zip one past the goalie, past his shoulder, top shelf for a goal. You got to connect on those opportunities. And that's something that we have seen flashes of throughout the course of Matt Boldy's career. We haven't seen, super consistent stretches. He goes hot, he runs cold. And you can't afford to do that in the biggest moments in the playoff tension. You've got to be able to deliver if you want to come away with wins. Everything gets magnified in the postseason. It comes down quite often to a shot that goes in, or a puck that gets deflected in, or just getting a stick on a puck to knock it out of the zone on a penalty kill. Every inch is magnified. So for Matt Boldy, let's crank it up to 11 here. Let's get a good series on tape, and let's give Kirill Kaprizov some help in this series, because if Matt Boldy has a big series here for the Minnesota Wild, it may not ultimately be enough for them to beat the Vegas Golden Knights, just like all the battle lines that we talked about in yesterday's show. The everydayers know exactly what I'm going to say next. It may not necessarily mean that the Wild will have enough to beat the Vegas Golden Knights, but it will sure propel them in the right direction. if Kirill Kaprizov looks like himself and they get a big performance from somebody in a supporting role, in a step-up role, that's going to go that's going to go a long way towards them being able to pull an upset here in this series. It's not going to be even remotely easy. You're going to hear me reference that plenty of times over the course of the next few days with all the content we have coming up leading up to Sunday's puck drop. It's not going to be easy. And so if you don't get these types of big performances, these step-up performances from some of these key guys, you're probably not going to win the series. But if you do, that's going to help you start to narrow the gap, start to pull in closer to this Vegas team. And Matt Boldy's at the top of the list of players that you need to see a little bit of a step up from to do what is necessary to come away with a win in this series. The next one is fairly obvious, but it bears repeating what Filip Gustafsson will be tasked with in this series. So we'll take a look at what Gus has done so far throughout his postseason career, as well as what he is going to need to keep an eye on all series long. That's coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you are ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite TV shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. That's Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire Stick TV 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Reminder of the schedule for the rest of the next couple of days leading up to the puck drop on Sunday night. We are going to have a crossover with Locked on Golden Knights coming up for you tomorrow. Chris from Locked on Golden Knights will join me for a little chat about how these two teams stack up heading into the matchup starting Sunday. We'll be airing that for you on Sunday, by the way. We've got a roundtable coming up with some of the Locked on Wild regulars for you tomorrow. And we will have a special pregame hit with Denny coming up for you on Sunday as well, leading right up to puck drop. So a lot for you, a lot coming up, and we got some exciting things for you to gear up for this series, to say the least. So taking a look at three players that will be keys in this series one way or another. And this one may be a little too obvious, but I just wanted to talk about Filip Gustafsson and what he is going to be tasked with in this series. Now, Filip Gustafsson in his first postseason experience, which came in the series against Dallas in 2022-2023, he performed pretty well. He was 2.4 goals saved above expected. He had a 2.33 goals against average. He had a 921 save percentage. And let's not forget, in the first game of the series, the 3-2 double overtime win against the Dallas Stars, he outdueled Jake Ottinger to the tune of 51 saves on 53 shots on goal. Gustafsson only allowed 3 goals. He did not allow any more than that. He allowed 3 goals in games 3, 4, and 5. Or actually, it was 4, 5, and 6. I beg your pardon. keep forgetting about the Fleury game in game 2 that kind of threw everything out of whack. But we've seen it from Filip Gustafsson this year. He has had to step up and do more than what you would normally ask for your goalie because of the inability for this Wild offense to consistently score with key players out of the lineup. He has had plenty of games in which he has, he's had games where he has saved more goals above expected than the final outcome, the margin of the final outcome, which tells you how crucial he has been for the Wilds to get to the point that they are at here this season. And he's going to need to do a lot of that here in this series as well. As far as goals saved above expected in the regular season, he was 13th in the league with 15.3, which translated out to .268 goals saved above expected per 60 minutes. In his postseason career, albeit just one series, he was at .46, so slightly above a half goal saved above expected per game. Filip Gustafsson is going to need to own the medium and high danger areas in particular, because that is where the Vegas Golden Knights, that's where they make all their money. That is where they, that's where they're going to try to do the most of their damage. So if Filip Gustafsson can just keep those shots for the most part from going in. Now, his high danger unblocked shot attempt save percentage during the regular season was .761, which put him 21st amongst the starting goalies in the league. So he was beatable in those situations. In the medium danger situations, though, in .878 save percentage, which was tied for second in the league. So he can own that area. He can take that away from the Vegas Golden Knights. The low danger unblocked shot attempt save percentage, Gustafsson was 19th at .972. So Gustafsson just has to take some of that away from the Vegas Golden Knights in this series. And at minimum, he's got to allow the Minnesota Wild time to get their offense figured out. They're not going to likely have it from the drop. It's going to take them a little while to kind of feel it out and see what Vegas is allowing and what they're walling off. So Gustafsson is just going to have to step up like he did during the regular season and just take some things away from the Vegas Golden Knights in order to give the Minnesota Wild a chance in this series. Because if Gustafsson lets in the soft goals, this one is not going to go the direction that the Minnesota Wild would like. So there's a lot of pressure on Filip Gustafsson. Hopefully now, having a postseason under his belt, he will be able to kind of step up and shine in these big moments against a very tough Vegas Golden Knights team. If he does that, Wild are going to be in good shape. If he does not, good luck. So Filip Gustafsson, obviously, there's a lot riding on this series for him and for the Minnesota Wild as well. So we'll find out soon enough if Gus is up to it. I think he is. I think the goalie matchup is pretty intriguing between him and Aden Hill. I think there's a spot where Gus can potentially pull that in the Minnesota Wild's favor as this series plays out. One final player we want to talk about. We'll talk about an honorable mention as well, because I've seen some of the comments kind of wondering about what's going on with a particular Wild defenseman. So we'll talk about an honorable mention as well as one final player to take a look at. That is coming up right here on Locked on Wild. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Game Time. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here. And if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it is next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as puck drop gets closer, and with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. My favorite Game Time features, the all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And if something happens, Game Time ticket coverage lets you know you are protected with its cancellation protection, job loss assurance, or their 24-hour return guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. We will, as a reminder, we've got a preview coming up of Locked On Golden Knights that'll air on Sunday. We've got a roundtable for you with some Locked On Wild regulars that will air tomorrow. And then Denny will be joining us for a special preview. He is feeling an upset, so that will air on Sunday before the game as well. So we got a lot for you, and of course, we'll have you covered during the series as well. Still putting a plan together for post games with those late starts. So we'll let you know here by Sunday what the plan is for those as well. But just wanted to talk about one more player that I think is going to be key for the Minnesota Wild in this series, and it's Marcus Foligno for me. Now, you may hear that and say, oh, interesting choice. But I think we can all agree that Marcus Foligno is a pretty important heartbeat on this team. He had a great year this year, had a nice rebound year from an offensive perspective. But defensively, the numbers that he put up on defense were great as well. And the Minnesota Wild are going to need Foligno to kind of set the example to avoid what happened against the Dallas Stars. We all remember that series. Frustration with the officiating led to the Wilds just parading to the penalty box over and over and over again, and the Dallas Stars took advantage with just a ton of power play goals. And it started pretty quickly in game 2. You had Marcus Foligno, who had the hit. He ended up getting a game misconduct in that game 2 and had to leave in first 10 minutes of the game. The Wild never recovered from it. And it seemed like the Wilds let their frustration get the best of them for basically the entire rest of the series. And this is no different than any other team that you would play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The games get tighter. You don't get as many penalties called. They kind of come at key moments. But every team that goes on the power play, it seems like, is able to capitalize. And a lot of times those are the difference in the game. So for this Minnesota Wild team, we talked about it yesterday with our battle lines, but it bears repeating because it is certainly important. It's critical, you could say. The Minnesota Wild have to play very disciplined hockey against this Vegas Golden Knights team. Now, this isn't Dallas. So this is a Golden Knights team that plays an incredibly disciplined style themselves. They went on the fewest power plays in the league. They were the least penalized team in the league. And yet, on the power play, they were second in the league with a just over 28% on the power play. And Marcus Foligno is a player who I think embodies the edge that the Minnesota Wild like to play with when they're winning, and he is flying around, hitting everything that moves. that gives the Wild some swagger, that gives them the confidence that they are in position to do what they need to do. But if he gets called for a gazillion penalties and ends up, spending most of his time in the penalty box, he really can't help. He really can't help the Minnesota Wild with his play when he's watching from the box. He had 75 penalty minutes in 77 games this year. By comparison, the last time he played in the 70s for games played was 2021-2022. He had 112 penalty minutes that year. So he shaved almost 35. He shaved just under 40 penalty minutes off of his total in 3 more games than he played in that 2021-2022 season. And he went to the penalty box a bunch in that postseason series against the Dallas Stars. So as Foligno goes, I feel like the Minnesota Wild will go here as well. And even to just take it one step further for Foligno, he has been getting increased top 6 time here over the last few weeks, because it just seems to have developed a nice chemistry with Matt Boldy. And so if Foligno is going to play that type of a role in this series, as he can provide a little bit of bite, of physicality in that top 6 when Boldy and Freddie Gaudreau are doing their thing, when Eriksson Ek is doing his thing. They just have to, Foligno just, I think, has to do what he does to give this team the confidence that they can hang in this series and can be a factor. Because if Foligno gets frustrated, that frustration boils over to the team. And that's when the mistakes start to become super frequent. And that's when the goals start to come on the other end. And that's when the losses start to pile up. So Marcus Foligno, just from the confidence angle, plays a huge, important role with this team. Great forward defensively. He is going to, as a bigger body, he is going to be relied upon to do a lot of the defensive work for this team to try to keep the bigger Vegas forwards from just taking over these games. So he is going to need to be, he's going to need to be on his A game. And if he is, like, I think back to that Dallas series and the game 3 that he played at home when Wild fans were booing Ryan Suter off the ice, which always a fan of. No matter the role that he plays, even if he's on the third line or wherever he's at in the lineup, if he is able to set the tone, then that's going to help the Wild out tremendously in keeping things close in these games. Now, the honorable mention that I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes talking about here is Zeev Buium, who practiced on the third pairing and the number 1 power play unit in the most recent practice today for the Minnesota Wild. Could have a little wild card on our hands here, because Zeev, obviously, we wanted to see him play against Anaheim to kind of get his feet wet. But John Hines and others talked about, he just didn't get a ton of practice in it. He was coming off a billion minutes played in the NCAA tournament. So if Buium is comfortable enough to be able to step in and to provide, he's going to be able to, I think, fill a couple of key spots. Number 1, you can't have a third pairing that gets picked on by the opponent, because they will eat that up. We saw that happen in the series, especially against the St. Louis Blues. The Blues just beat that third pairing to death throughout the back few games of that series. So Zeev, he's obviously going to be playing his first NHL game, so there's going to be some nerves. But another spot that is in desperate need of some life pumped into it is the power play. And Zeev is a natural power play quarterback. with the instincts that he possesses offensively, the ability he has to not only move the puck, but to create opportunities for himself, is something that is sorely lacking for a power play that gets way too perimeter centric when things aren't going well. So to put him into that mix and to create an option to kind of complement Kirill Kaprizov as a take charge player, I think would do some real good for that unit. And as we have talked about since we knew that it was going to be the Vegas Golden Knights, you're going to be up against a very tall challenge to keep the special teams battle close. And whatever you can do to manufacture a couple more power play goals is absolutely worth it to do. So Zeev, if he plays, he could have a big impact on this series if he can help turn that power play unit from one that looks like they don't know what they're doing to one that looks like they do and is one that can actually score as well. So let me know in the comments who you think are going to be the biggest key players. Like I said, I obviously kept Kirill Kaprizov out of this because we know he's going to be a key player. He's expected to be. So I went with 3 others. Let me know which players you think will be keys in this series against the Vegas Golden Knights, and we'll see what we get for comments on this one. But that's all we've got for you here for today. Appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, make sure to like and subscribe before you head out for the night so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.